we are outside the Cancer Connection thrift shop on a cold December 6th. Rain, but
Isn't that someone we used to know? That man with the top hat and cane. Isn't that someone we used to know? Now it's just a shadow in the rain. I've been traveling ever since the morning I was born. Railroads, highways, prairies filled with wheat and straw and corn. But now I'm getting older and I need to settle down. I've been on this road for oh so long. Just another stop and just another quiet town. Another lonely night, another song. And then I'm heading off to heaven, and I think I'm going home. I'm heading off to heaven, goodbye. I'm heading off to heaven, and I think I'm going home. So long, I'll see you in the sky. Orchards, grapevines, teacups filled with sugar and blues. Cabins, mansions, ruffled shirts and neatly polished shoes. Well, I think I saw an angel by the river lake last night. He looked at me, he smiled and he laughed. He said that he'd be leaving in the early morning light, floating down the river on a raft. He said, I'm heading off to heaven, and I think I'm going home. I'm heading off to heaven, goodbye. I'm heading off to heaven, and I think I'm going home. So long, I'll see you in the sky.
Mr. Stroheim, I'm ready for my close-up. How's it been going?
It's been going very well. Thanks for coming in. Of course.
No. Tell me your name and what you do here, little girl.
My name is Nancy Charbonneau. I'm the thrift shop manager.
Your first year.
As of December 10th,
Okay.
we will be 1 year old.
How did the idea for the thrift shop get started?
Well, you know, maybe the perfect person for that question will be coming in momentarily.
Oh,
That's
good.
my boss.
Sure.
The executive director of Cancer Connection,
Oh, good.
Betsy Neisner. Yes,
Yeah,
she would
yeah,
love to.
That'll be fun.
It was.
What? No, the earnings from the shop go to help out the
Yes.
Cancer Connection.
After all the bills are paid, all the proceeds go to Cancer Connection, Inc.
What do they generally get spent on? I know that you offer all kinds of services, massages, art classes. What else does?
Absolutely.
Or should I ask Nancy?
You could ask Betsy, but
Betsy.
we offer so many free programs
Yeah.
and services like one-on-one support, so many different support groups, cooking classes, art classes, fly fishing for men.
Right.
So many different things.
What are some of
I've
the
been
more
drawn to-
unexpected things that happened in the shop over the last year? What has happened that
Do we have any
you weren't ready for?
I'm trying to think if we've had any celebrities in here.
Ooh.
Well, there's a local celebrity on her way. Children's book author
And
Natasha
we're
Lowe.
going to be filming her.
I know. What unexpected? Well, there's a bear in the parking lot
And a frog.
and a frog.
We'll have to include some of these photographs. I'll let you off
I'm
the
so
hook.
bad. Thank you. You'll have to help me get that. Oh, nice.
Nancy, I heard that you make an appearance in this book. Is that so?
I'm in the acknowledgements.
Oh, in the acknowledgements.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought you might be a witch or something.
Oh, she might.
A good witch, maybe.
There's some good pictures.
All right.
I'll send that to you.
Okay, so I thought before I begin reading, I might tell you a little bit about the book and where the idea came from, because I always think it's exciting to hear about where authors get their ideas for stories from. Well, this book is about a little girl who wants to be a baker, but she's born with the gift of magic, and her parents are thrilled, so they would like Poppy to go to witch school, and she wants nothing to do with that at all. She wants nothing to do with being a witch, and she tries to tell her parents that. She says, I'd like to be a baker, and they said, you know what, we know what's best for you because we're your parents, and I'm a parent, but I tell you, parents are not always right, and Poppy's parents were not right. They really, really, really wanted her to be a witch, and she really wanted to be a baker. And after trying to tell them again and again, her magic gets out of control and something really disastrous happens. I won't tell you what it is because I don't want to ruin the book.
My last name is Baker.
Your last name is Baker. Well, Poppy loves to bake. And where this idea came from is actually a fun little story. It came from a stone goose, and those of you that have read Poppy will know why that's important. But this goose came from an auction, and an auction is where you just can buy things and bid on things, and my husband came home with this stone goose. And I looked at it, and my daughter looked at it, and she was about 4 at the time, and she said, oh, that goose looks real. And it did look real. It had this little beady eye, and it was looking at us, and I said, maybe a witch had put a spell on it and turned it to stone, which made my daughter scream and run in the house because she was so scared this witch would come and take her goose back. And I said, no, it wasn't a mean evil witch. It was a little girl. And she didn't want to be a witch. And she was sad. And sometimes when you're sad, right, you do things that you regret later. And my daughter said, why didn't she want to be a witch? And I said, oh, because she wanted to be a baker. And that's when I knew I had to write this story. So, I am going to read some of the first chapter, and it's my first book, and coming out in January. I have another book coming out about a little girl called Cat Campbell who also wants to be a witch. Yes?
My birthday's in January.
Great. That's exciting. Well, chapter 1, because I think it's always good to start a story from the beginning.
This is what the cover's gonna look like.
That's the cover of the new book, and I'll give you girls some bookmarks, and you boys some bookmarks. You have a bookmark. Okay, chapter 1, Poppy. Poppy Pendle was born on the floor of a bakery, Patisserie Marie Claire, the fancy French bakery in the little town of Potts Bottom. Now, people don't usually give birth on bakery floors in the middle of a Thursday afternoon, but Edith Pendle did just that. She had no choice, even though her baby wasn't due for another 2 weeks. Poppy pushed her way out with the speed of an express train and was immediately wrapped up in a cake-scented tea towel by the kind lady who ran the shop. The customers cheered, and someone handed Edith Pendle a bag of little warm almond cakes. Sitting up in her mother's arms, Poppy breathed in deeply and reached for the bag of cakes. Then she did something quite unexpected. She gobbled them all down, waved her sugary fingers at the crowd, smiled, and gave a contented look. Although the Pendles didn't approve of giving birth in a bakery, no one could deny that their daughter was an amazing and extremely unusual child. By 3 months old, she had learnt to walk and could carry bags of shopping up Pudding Lane to the Pendles' little brick house. At the post office, she usually caused quite a stir, leaping up and posting all the out-of-town mail through the top letter slot. She's really advanced, Roger Pendle liked to brag to their neighbours. One late autumn day, something happened that made Poppy's already proud parents even prouder. Mrs. Pendle's sister Vivian had come for a visit, and it was such a pleasant afternoon that the Pendles decided to have tea in the garden. Poppy had carried out her high chair and was settled next to Auntie Viv when her mother came parading across the lawn, bearing a strange pink-tinted cake on a tray. "I've made an orange cake," Edith Pendle announced, which was a surprise in itself because she hardly ever cooked. "I got the recipe from the back of a can of tinned salmon. Apparently it's full of protein." Auntie Viv covered her mouth in horror, and Poppy gagged, kicking her feet in the air. Poor Edith Pendle abruptly stumbled forward as if she'd been pushed from behind and dropped the cake on the grass with a splat. "Oh dear," Mr. Pendle said, a hint of relief in his voice. "My cake!" Mrs. Pendle wailed, while Poppy babbled away in her own private language. She waved her drooly fingers about, and a gorgeous chocolate cake covered in pink sugar roses suddenly appeared on the table. "Now, where in heaven did that come from?" Auntie Viv gasped. Poppy chuckled and sucked on her toes, blowing pale pink bubbles into the air. As they popped, showers of sugared almonds scattered down. "It's Poppy," Mr. Pendle cried, staring at his daughter in disbelief. "She's got the gift, Edith. She's really got the gift. I don't believe it." Poppy was clapping her hands together, and little chocolate doves were flying out of them. Mr. Pendle plucked one up and popped it into his mouth. "Oh, fantastic, Edith! Our Poppy's magic!" Mr. Pendle worked in a shoe shop called Happy Feet, selling shoes to the people of Potts Bottom. It was boring, smelly work, being surrounded by cheesy feet all day long, and he certainly didn't want his daughter following in his footsteps. Now they could stop worrying because Poppy was destined for much bigger things. Crouching beside her, he stuck his face close to Poppy's. "Who's a clever girl, then? Who's going to be a witch when she grows up?" "I'm putting her name down for Ruthersfield Academy first thing Monday morning," Mrs. Pendle declared. "There hasn't been a witch in the family for 3 generations, not since Granny Mabel. I'm just tickled pink. I'm so proud. I do wish Poppy hadn't been born in a bakery, though," she sighed. "It doesn't seem fitting somehow." Poppy made a loud noise like a raspberry, and a tiny grey cloud formed and hovered about 12 inches above the tea table. "Oh, Luke, she's at it again," Mr. Pendle exclaimed. The Pendles watched in excitement as the storm cloud erupted, pouring water down onto the chocolate cake. Then Poppy scrunched up her face, turned the colour of an overripe tomato, and burst into tears. Straight after breakfast on Monday, the Pendles telephoned Miss Lavinia Roach, the head mistress at Ruthersfield Academy. Miss Roach had never heard of a baby performing magic before. "This is really quite astonishing if what you're telling me is true," she told Edith Pendle. "But before I put Poppy down on our waiting list, I would appreciate seeing the child for myself. Sometimes parents go to rather extreme lengths to get their girls into Ruthersfield. We are, as I'm sure you well know, Mrs. Pendle, the only accredited school for magic in the country, and we are very selective." "Oh, just wait till you see our little Poppy," Mrs. Pendle said. "I'm sure you'll be suitably impressed." So the next afternoon, Poppy was promptly brought over to Ruthersfield for her interview. As the Pendles were ushered into the headmistress's office, Poppy kept trying to climb out of the carriage and trot back toward the door. "No, sweetheart," Edith Pendle insisted, grasping her daughter by the hand so she couldn't escape. "Looks like she has other plans," Miss Roach said, smiling down at Poppy. "Well, she doesn't understand what an honour it is to be here," Edith Pendle said, tugging her daughter into the room. "This is quite an occasion for the Pendle family. I brought this with me," Poppy's father began, carefully extracting a sheet of white paper from a cardboard tube and unrolling it across Miss Roach's desk. "Our family tree," he announced, bursting with pride and pointing a finger at the chart. "Well, my wife's family tree, really. That's great Granny Mabel right there," he said, tapping at the paper, "but I'm sure you know all about her." "Oh, indeed," Miss Roach lowered her head in reverence. "What an honour for you all, being related to Mabel Radcliffe, one of the best head girls Rutherfield ever had." "And Luke," Roger Pendle said, breathing heavily over the chart. "Her great-great-great-grandmother Irene had the gift as well, you see, so it runs in the family. We can go right back to the 13th century. "Oh, certainly, quite remarkable, Mr. Pendle. Now, please, won't you all sit down?" Miss Roach suggested. "I'll ring for some tea and biscuits." Poppy immediately climbed up into one of the chairs facing Miss Roach's desk and started to suck on her fingers. "While we wait, why don't you show me what sort of magic little Poppy can do?" "Right then, come on, sweetheart," Mrs. Pendle said, tickling her daughter under the chin. "Show this nice lady your tricks." Poppy blew a raspberry, but nothing happened. "Make some chocolate birdies appear," her father encouraged. Poppy paid no attention, and it was only when the school secretary brought in a tea tray that she began to get excited. "Is Poppy allowed a biscuit?" Miss Roach said, offering round a plate of chocolate shortbread. "We have a wonderful chef here at Rutherfield. Everything's homemade." Poppy gurgled, bouncing up and down in her chair. Little marshmallow balls started to burst out of her lap and onto the desk, like popcorn exploding from a popcorn maker. One of them landed right in Miss Roach's cup of tea. "Now that's my clever girl," Mrs. Pendle said, planting a kiss on Poppy's forehead. The soft, sticky balls were bouncing about all over the room, but Poppy ignored them, munching away on a biscuit. When she had finished, she licked her fingers, gave a satisfied sigh, and blew out hundreds of tiny gold stars. "Quite the show, eh?" Mr. Pendle said, brushing bits of stardust off his suit. "Unbelievable," Lavinia Roach agreed. "I have never seen anything like it. Your daughter is extraordinary. Rutherfield Academy would be honoured to offer her a place. She's far too young now, of course, but when she's 7, we will be expecting her." Poppy scrunched up her face and blew a loud, windy raspberry. Pink berry-shaped bubbles floated into the air, and when they popped, an overpowering stench of rotting fruit filled the room. Miss Roach gave a nervous laugh. "It's a good thing your daughter's only 6 months old," she remarked. "Otherwise, I might think she didn't want to come to Rutherfield Academy at all." Well, the older she got, the more apparent it became that it was cakes Poppy wanted to make and not spells. Around her 5th birthday, she discovered a cookbook, The Art of Simple Baking, lodged under the fridge and covered in dust. It had been a wedding present to the Pendles and was still in its cellophane wrapping. One spring afternoon, Maxine lived next door, and they were talking across the backyard fence while Poppy lay on the grass reading her newest edition of Good Eats magazine. She had bought herself a subscription with her birthday money when she turned 6 and loved to pore over the pictures. "I don't know where she gets it from, I really don't. Certainly not me." Edith gave a nervous laugh. "What's wrong with a nice box mix, might I ask?" Maxine giggled. "Well, she was born in a French bakery." "Yes, but we don't mention that in front of her," Edith Pendle said, lowering her voice. "Honestly, Maxine, that is not something Poppy needs to know about. She'd want to buy bread there or find out how they make those fancy cakes." Mrs. Pendle studied her daughter longingly. I just don't understand it, I really don't." She shook her head and sighed. "What Poppy should be doing is concentrating on her magic." "So, when is her first day at Rutherfield?" Maxine Gibbons asked. "Not till September, but I'm so excited, Maxine. You should see the uniform. Deep purple with gold trim. Poppy's going to look so smart." "She doesn't seem very enthusiastic, does she?" Maxine said. "No." Poppy's mother frowned. "Thank goodness she won't have time for this ridiculous cooking nonsense when she starts school." Maxine shrieked with laughter and called over to Poppy. "You need to get cooking up some spells, my girl. Witches don't make cakes, they make magic." But I don't want to be a witch, Poppy whispered, wondering if there was something wrong with her. She wished she could stop herself from turning 7. Unfortunately, she knew that sort of magic was impossible for her. And in a few months' time, whether she liked it or not, she was going to be starting at Rubbersfield. And that's the end of chapter 1. So, thank you, and thank you all for coming to listen. It's a wonderful birthday celebration.